Slim is the YouTube Boxing Fighter of the Year. Fighter of the Year is a prestigious title given annually to the best fighter in a select combat sport, with the general consensus of the YouTube Boxing Fighter of the Year being the fighter who had the most activity, made an impact, and overall who progressed the most within that year to earn the title of Fighter of the Year. Now, while I'm not saying Slim is the best pound for pound YouTube boxer or that he would beat someone on the level of Jake Paul, but this year Slim has went from someone who was dismissed in the scene, being just a filler fighter with cherry-picked opponents, to at the end of the year widely considered as one of the top 5 pound for pound YouTube boxers, just under the likes of KSI and Jake Paul. There have been several YouTube boxing events this year with Slim taking the first half of the year not fighting, although he was advocating to fight Anisong Gibb on the Showstar boxing card. Since this didn't happen, however, Slim decided to sign himself up for a different event in the UK, being the Kingpin boxing event against Ryan Taylor. This was set for the summer of this year, however during the lead up of the fight, there was a massive altercation between both Ryan and Slim where Slim suffered a retina injury, putting him out of the fight and forcing him to take time off of boxing. While this was a huge disappointment for Slim at the time, it was actually a blessing in disguise. In August of 2022, KSI was set to make his boxing return, with the co-main event being Face Temper vs Blueface. But after Blueface was forced to drop out of the event, in came Slim to take his place on 2 weeks' notice to get an opportunity to prove himself on the biggest YouTube boxing card of the year. This was a huge fight for Slim as he and Face Temper had history in terms of callouts and back and forth, and Temper making a name for himself in the scene not too long ago after beating King Kenny by unanimous decision on the Showstar boxing card. Slim ended up stopping Temper in the second round, pulling off the biggest upset of the night and cementing his name as one of the top guys in the YouTube boxing landscape. This not only gave Slim credibility, but it also gave him respect for taking a fight against one of the tougher matchups in the scene on only 2 weeks' notice, coming off an injury and having an emphatic, decisive performance over Temper. Slim then set out for revenge, remaining active and making his way back into the ring less than 2 months later on the second Misfits boxing card against his nemesis Ryan Taylor. In the fight, Slim put on a shutout performance over Ryan, winning most if not all rounds and dropping Ryan in the process. While Ryan Taylor was not the most credible opponent, he showed to be better than most expected with huge heart and toughness, and Slim showed his versatility by going to decision for the first time in his career thus far, after a very short turnaround. Slim has now announced that he will be making the walk on his third of the 4 Misfits boxing events so far, going up against Tom Zanetti in early January on the undercard of KSI vs Dylan Dennis. Slim has shown his dedication to the sport, staying active and capitalizing on his opportunities this year, which I do believe puts him as the Fighter of the Year, but let's take a look at other contenders. Jake Paul is the most obvious runner-up for YouTube Boxing Fighter of the Year, fighting Anderson Silva and outpointing one of the GOATs of the UFC in a tough war, being his best performance to date. While this is of course better than Slim's wins against Ryan Taylor and Face Temper, the sheer shock factor as well as activity for Slim is what puts him above in my opinion, as he was generally counted out against Face Temper, meanwhile Jake was the slight favorite going into his fight against Anderson Silva. If Jake had fought twice this year and they had gone through with his fight against Hasim Rahman Jr., this definitely would have put Jake as the top YouTube Boxing Fighter of the Year with the same amount of fights as Slim and tougher competition. However, that didn't end up being the case, with Jake himself even giving Slim high praise for his boxing performances.
But it's people like Slim who are the future of the sport, honestly, where they have the audience and the following and the personality, but they back it up with exciting fights.
Another contender for Fighter of the Year is Deji, having 3 fights this year and going into the year as the guy who was undedicated, had a bad gas tank, and having a loser's mentality, to getting his first win in dominant fashion, along with somehow securing a fight against one of the best boxers of all time in Floyd Mayweather. This was a great year for Deji, even though he had a rough start with a loss to Alex Wasabi. He bounced back and put a beating on Fuzi, breaking his nose and forcing the towel to be thrown in the process. Then finally he took on one of the GOATs in a fight where he was able to give Floyd Mayweather a black eye and make it to the final round, however just missing the final bell and being stopped in the 6th round. While Deji showed to be in high contention for this title, I feel like he can't be considered the YouTube Boxer of the Year with 2 losses and 1 win in 2022, even though his impact, activity, skill, and discipline he's shown and developed was the best we've seen from Deji up until this point. The final honorable mention is King Kenny, going from making his debut against Face Temper at the start of the year, which didn't go in his favor, to a controversial win over a proven veteran in the scene in Face Sensei, wrapping up the year with a first round knockout over DK Money. While Kenny did put himself on the map this year, his 2 controversial fights hold him back from being considered the Fighter of the Year in 2022, but at least he put a stamp on the year with his first decisive finish. So yeah, going through the YouTube Boxing Fighter of the Year, I think that Slim definitely deserves the title for 2022, as he was active, became a fan favorite, and progressed massively within the last year, proving himself to be one of the best YouTube boxers. But let me know what your thoughts are on my Fighter of the Year and whether you agree with my take on Slim being the 2022 YouTube Boxer of the Year. But thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed my content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.